welcome to another edition of Radical Grace Radio.
I'm Pastor Gary Held.
And my name's Matthew Pancake, and this is episode 832. It's a surprising number to Pastor because we've been like giving this gospel perspective to the world for 832 episodes now.
We've certainly aimed to do that over and over again. We get it better some weeks than others, but I asked you before we pushed the button to start recording. I said, okay, so what's our episode number again? Because you say it at the start of every one of them, and so you'd think I could remember. Was it 830 or is it 730? Because you started from one. Could it really be that many? And so, yeah, I'm just surprised. I'm not surprised. It certainly makes perfectly good sense.
No, I remember when you were trying to talk about it, this just before we started the show, you were talking and then you'd stop and then you'd talk and then you said, that's a lot.
Yeah. I don't
because I mean, what else do you say about it?
Well,
but then again, think about this for a second. We were talking about potential topics in the future. I'm not going to drop what they are, but some of it was about touched on how long Christianity's been around or how long ancient practices have been around.
Yeah.
They've been around for a really long time as well.
Things that we take for granted, but when you say they've been around for a long time, they have been. They haven't been the same throughout the whole of Christian history. And yet we think that, well, this is how the church has always done it. Well, no, the church hasn't always done it this way. No. They've done something similar, or they did it they aim to do the same thing in a different way. But, there are people who will, they'll decide to fight and split over things that Scripture doesn't talk about, and then they'll say, but this is important for, kind of the essence of our identity, who we are. And they're making a decent point, but they're not looking at both sides. That's the whole thing.
Right. So that's just a little bit of the thing that we were talking about before. You know what else gets done the same, but in a new way every week?
Tell me. I fear.
It's the news. I'm going to stop calling it the Christian news roll, mainly because this week, I found news stories that I thought were worth talking about. But the thing is it's Christian news is starting to get secular news. It's really clickbaity and kind of, and it's okay, maybe I'm just going to start talking about news I care about. But anyway, let's go ahead and do the news roll. An Oregon woman, her name is Marlena Barbera, is a patient battling breast cancer and scheduled for a mastectomy, has been dropped by her primary care doctor in the Oregon Health Science University, OSU, from this on out. And that's a clinic. And the decision reportedly stems from Barbara's objections to a transgender pride flag displayed in the doctor's office and her alleged comments about LGBT employees. Now, they are alleged. Barbara expressed concerns about the flag's presence, and this is actually, we do know that she said this, likening it to an enormous transgenderism banner hanging like a Nazi flag behind the reception desk. She received threats from trans activists on social media, making her uneasy about seeking medical treatment under the banner's message. But in response, OSU stated Barbara was removed due to her disrespectful and hurtful remarks about our LGBT community and staff. And this incident has raised questions about the balance between freedom of expression and patient responsibilities in a healthcare setting. An OSU spokesperson declined to comment further, pointing to the institution's patients' rights and responsibilities, discouraging discriminatory and threatening behavior. Concerns have been raised about the possible infringement of the Patient Protection Act and Affordable Care Act's Section 1557, which prohibits discrimination based on various factors, including sex and gender identity in healthcare programs. I don't know, that could actually work against you in this. It adds to a previous controversy, this situation does, at the OSU clinic, where a medical assistant was profiled for espousing racist and communist ideologies and that highlights the ongoing challenges within the institution and maybe even the larger medical establishment by itself. I love
or it says something about Oregon, a little communism here, a little racism there.
Yeah.
Sprinkle some transgenderism across the whole thing.
Yeah.
Whatever. I mean, no.
Put some barbecue sauce on top. Yeah.
My listeners in Oregon, please don't send hate mail. We're just kidding.
Or maybe do some. Tell us.
Yeah, okay. Well, now you want to poke the bear? Go ahead. So, if you're going to poke the bear, Matthew, how about blasphemy? Matthew, I got a question for you. Is blasphemy more acceptable when it's high tech? High tech blasphemy. Do you have an answer for that? I guess you don't. Caught you flat-footed on that one. So there's a new groundbreaking app. And guess what it's called? It's called Text with Jesus. And it's revolutionizing how people engage with biblical figures. Now, it's developed by a company called, get this, Cat Loaf, like a loaf of bread, Cat Loaf software, and the app is using the latest. You're just dying.
I'm sorry.
The app uses the latest AI technology. Specifically, what it's doing is it's using Chat GPT. But what it's doing is it's using that to create virtual interactions with biblical characters. So users can pose questions and receive detailed responses, providing an opportunity to engage with biblical figures in conversations. It's not just Jesus, even though that's what the app is called. You also have the Holy Family, the apostles, prophets, and there are others. And the AI has been meticulously, I like that word, meticulously trained to emulate the personalities of these characters and draw upon relevant, there's that relevant word, relevant Bible verses, thus making the conversations both informative, and I love this, and authentic. Okay. Yeah, sure. Real authentic. So the app that's launched it sparked various reactions from amusement to controversy. While some users are intrigued by the interactive approach to exploring scripture. Oh, that's how you're going to spin it. Okay. Others express concerns about using AI for such sacred conversations. And despite this, the app's developer, Stephanie Peter, emphasizes that its purpose that it's an innovative way to explore and understand biblical teachings. Okay, so now when they asked the developer about Jesus's mild responses, in the virtual Jesus, mild responses on sensitive issues, Peter acknowledged that Jesus's followers tend to make an inclusive and tolerant approach and thus avoid offending others. So the app encourages users to prioritize love and respect for all persons, regardless of sexual orientation or gender identity.
Yeah, they just had to throw that in there.
The app leaves guidance on same-sex marriage up to personal faith and convictions. And, it's signed with rainbow and red heart emojis. And then concerning feminism, virtual Jesus emphasized the importance of empowering women and breaking societal barriers that limited their opportunities. And so what I have to say about that is, in other words, the AI is under the impression Jesus is a 21st century progressive leaning American. Who knew? I thought he was a first century Palestinian Jew, but no.
A meticulously trained progressive leaning American. Meticulously.
Yeah,
so that it has authentic personality, except for this stuff.
Oh. Right. You might say, okay, I forgot the part about the authenticity.
Yeah. Okay. Remember, authentic, except for this stuff. Jesus made more news.
He did.
Yeah. He got
Is
deleted.
He still authentic?
Yeah. Well, if you want to say authentically deleted, he got deleted. He got deleted from a recent Porsche advertisement that celebrated the 60th anniversary of the Porsche 911 sports car. The ad was filmed against an oversized sculpture of the Jesus of Lisbon, Portugal, that got later digitally removed from it for some reason. In the ad, filmed against the backdrop of Lisbon's Santuario de Cristo Rei,
very well
overlooking
said.
I'm good at it. The Tagus River. The statue's pedestal is clearly visible, but Jesus himself is noticeably absent.
Did he go for a walk?
The photo doctoring went unnoticed until it got flagged by a viewer on social media, and that sparked controversy. Well, of course it did, because that's weird. In response to the Christian backlash, Porsche AG in Germany, the advertisement's creators, issued an apology through CBN's Faithwire, expressing regret for the contentious edit. Although the company didn't offer specific explanations for the statue's omission, the subsequent version of the ad that was released later reinstated the figure of Jesus. In other words, it was unedited, and it can now be viewed on Porsche's YouTube channel. Yeah,
okay.
just so that you know, this is classic commercial, that you see. So here's what you see: is you see like a woman walking along, kind of walking a dog, other people sitting on park benches, and there's a street right there. And in the background, you can see some of the city. And then here comes a Porsche driving along, and the camera pans, and you can clearly see the pedestal and nothing on top of the pedestal. It's just empty. That's what it was. And it's not even there that long. And someplace said, "Oh boy, there's a Jesus in our picture. there's a Jesus in our Porsche pictures. We've got to do something about that."
Somebody thought so.
It's apparently a thing.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. So, number 2 story, I got to ask you another question, Matthew. You're ambiguous about blasphemy before, high-tech blasphemy. But how about a manhunt? Are you up for talking about a manhunt? Federal authorities are searching for Jason Gerald Schenk, and is accused of diverting over $30 million from Christian charities that were intended for Bible distribution in China. According to a federal indictment unsealed on Tuesday, Schenk is alleged to have misappropriated more than $33 million in donations earmarked for producing and distributing the Bibles and the Christian literature, again in China. Instead, what he did is he channeled the funds towards a luxurious lifestyle. So the indictment details Schenk's extravagant expenditures, including $1 million on diamonds, $7 million on purchasing a family farm, $320,000 on real estate in Chile, and then other luxury purchases. Schenk is alleged to have run an intricate web of shell corporations, and he fabricated spreadsheets to obscure the trail of transactions, leading authorities to believe the scheme had been operated since around 2010. So he had some time to rake it in, I guess. Now, it goes this far. In order to evade detection, Schenk even renounced his U.S. citizenship in 2016, and the move was apparently made in order to avoid financial reporting requirements that are imposed by federal law. Now, the charges against him range from wire fraud and international concealment, money laundering, to money laundering involving transactions greater than $10,000. And if convicted, Schenk could face up to 20 years in prison, along with financial penalties and forfeitures.
$33 million
of Christian donations.
Of donations that Christians made to charities.
For Bibles for China.
Right. And is that making a buck off Jesus' name? No, it's stealing a buck off Jesus' name.
That is stealing. Well, let's go back to that after you read the number one story. Because the number one story is kind of a big deal.
Yeah, the number one story, it's not strictly Christian, but since Christians use energy, I think it's something that we want to know about.
Right.
U.S. scientists at the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory have achieved a remarkable milestone again, by the way, in fusion energy, marking their second net energy gain in a fusion reaction since December. They've done this experiment before, and they've made it work, and other people have been able to make it work too. The laboratory proudly announced the achievement, detailing that the breakthrough was replicated in a recent experiment at the National Ignition Facility on July 30th. Impressively, this iteration yielded even higher energy output than the initial December experiment, sparking excitement from the scientific community. Now, in the groundbreaking experiment, researchers focused a laser on a fuel target, successfully fusing two light atoms into a denser counterpart, thus liberating the energy from it. The fusion ignition produced 3.15 megajoules of energy, surpassing the laser's 2.05 megajoules. The achievement holds immense promise for both scientific advancements and practical applications, and the U.S. Energy Department lauded this achievement as a monumental leap forward, emphasizing its potential to reshape national defense strategies and spearhead the future of clean energy generation. And the scientists have aspired to harness fusion energy for about a century, emulating the power source that fuels the sun. And this technology's success in commercial scaling would revolutionize global power like you wouldn't believe. And that is this week's News Roll. Important news because, with all the other things that are going on in the world of clickbaity news and whatever else it is that I guess they make money off of, this right here, I don't know how long it will take because I don't know the particulars of like how it would work, or like it's way above my pay grade to be able to explain to someone exactly how you would build a scalable reactor that works on this. But here's what I do know about it. They didn't have to blow anything up. It didn't produce any radiation.
Yeah.
And they were able to do it economically, and they were able to get more power out of it than they put in. And whenever people say, well, I don't know, that sounds weird if you're measuring it that way. But every energy source that you have, you measure it that way. How much work went into generating the energy? It's always like that. All the way back to steam engines. You got to throw the wood in there, light the fires, boil the water, and then the pressure builds up, and then the gears start moving, and now you got power. Hopefully you get more out of it than what you put into it. That's what you always hope. In this case, showing that you can get more out of it than you put into this fusion reaction means that you could make something that scales. And what I mean by scales is you're not powering something teensy tiny. You're powering something much larger, or maybe even a large area, and getting away with it, because it's hard to generate energy.
You're technically speaking, you're not creating energy. Neither energy nor matter can be created or truly destroyed, but you can convert matter into energy. And there's, famously, Einstein's equations and such for guiding physicists how to do that. So this is a big deal because, many of us, I count myself, we are looking forward to a future with what they call clean energy. And the big contenders right now, the leading ones at least, are, solar, which the price of solar solar gets more and more efficient, and the price for harvesting it or gathering it keeps dropping as these price things come down. And then the other is wind, and wind is fantastically, if you could just always have wind whenever you wanted it, that's very efficient as well. Mm-hmm. And actually, considering that, you do have some fissionable waste afterwards, I think that I think we gave up on nuclear fission even too soon.
It scared people to death.
It scared people
because of the bombs and stuff like that.
No, because we had 3 Mile Island, which was nothing compared to Chernobyl. But and it doesn't matter the fact that those were both really aging reactors using very old technology.
3 Mile Island was an almost meltdown. It wasn't like
I understand it, yet the safety and the efficiency has greatly improved. So where Florida Power and Light, the power you're using right now as you're recording, well, that's coming from a nuclear reactor,
right?
And it's it's been working reliably, dependably, and we're not burning a bunch of oil or coal or anything like that to at least in your state, to be able to produce that. And fusion is even better. It is really even better. Boy, I tell you what, you really can have a future at that point. In fact, it's hard to overstate how big of a deal that could be, because you potentially can get so much energy from nuclear fusion if you can do it safely and then transmit it where the electricity where it needs to go. That, ask yourself the question, what would I do if electricity was like, I can't say it was free, but it was like, it's like, what if it became like for instance, like Hulu? As long as you pay for your subscription, you can binge watch all you want.
Yeah.
So as long as you pay for, the electric bill that is mostly about keeping maintenance up, it's an all-you-can-eat buffet. Yeah. You could charge everything, cars, just for beginners, but anything and everything. Then electricity becomes a really smart, very cost-effective way of accomplishing stuff that right now you could do it, but it would start to be expensive. Well, man, like I say, with nuclear fusion, that is real. The only problem, as I see it, is that it's clearly not, even assuming that the breakthrough, the scientific laboratory breakthrough, is real and replicated. What you said about producing it at scale, like scalable nuclear fusion power plants, how long before you can see that? Because that's not going to happen overnight.
We have AI to help us with that now.
Okay, well, you got AI, but it still might even take AI 20 years to really get here. Here's the design for the plant, and it's big without being huge, and so you can put one, all over the map. Basically every little town can have its own little nuclear fusion plant, and they're safe. They're not going to. They can't melt down. They can't, and they really can't explode either.
See, AI, like we understand it, is like, I wouldn't discount that, because they just used an AI to solve the problem of protein folding prediction,
which is a hard problem.
Which would have been a problem that mankind by themselves, with the best computers that we have that aren't AI driven or have an AI, would probably never have been able to figure out. And they have that now. And that's a way more complex problem than figuring out how to build a plant. And I'm not like trying to contradict you or anything. It's just it's just that. But the thing is, here's the thing that you and I were talking about, because one of the things that's also moving forward very quickly is battery technology.
Yes.
So imagine being able to buy a battery that is basically, has 1 kilowatt hour, 1,024 watt hours.
Yeah.
That you can run a refrigerator between 12 and 36 hours on, that charges up in 80 minutes.
80 minutes. Okay.
80 minutes. and you can run a device for 12 to 36 hours.
That's that. Well,
if that kind of technology
that exists, you're saying that exists now.
Yeah, you can buy that on Amazon right now. An EcoFlow. You can buy that right now. But the thing is like, you add that to scalable nuclear fusion, and we got like so much energy. Like, I would just love to know what on earth I would do with it. Like, it's just, Anyway, that's that was the reason why I put it in there, was because it's one of those things that comes along that you look at it and you say, look, this is where the world is changing. The only reason that there aren't more electric cars on the like people go, oh, they're never going to catch on. Well, they assume that there's like some lot someplace that's sitting there with like thousands of EVs, electric vehicles that nobody's buying. It's the exact opposite. There's thousands of waiting lists because they can't make enough of them.
That's right. Yeah.
So,
I mean, if anything, the different metals that need to be sourced from places like China, that could be a bottleneck. But the concept is more than just proven. People really not only enjoy EVs, but they have found that if you look at the lifetime cost of owning the vehicle, electric is definitely cheaper than internal combustion engine. And it doesn't take that long for it to cross over that more than break even point, and then you're saving money. Now people say, yeah, but you have to buy the EV and they're more expensive. And that's true right now. No, it's true that they may be some models a little more expensive, but they're already pretty close to price parity with internal combustion engines.
Right.
And in another few years, doubtlessly you say, well, the prices will go up because that's inflation. No. The most expensive part about an electric vehicle is the battery, and battery prices, as you just were pointing out, are going through the floor. So
yeah, you remember me pointing it out before the show. I actually didn't say how much that particular battery cost. It's under $1,000 now.
Yeah,
these used to be like $2,000 and $3,000.
Yeah, but I mean, again, how much you can power your whole house essentially, and
a good portion of it. Things that you didn't used to think that could, like people used to say, they use this as a metric. How long can I run my CPAP on one? Well, they've surpassed the 8-hour limit on that by 30. They're at 36 hours. So who sleeps for 36 hours? It's like, so yeah. And this is just one, and you can get more than one if that's what you want.
And technology is just going to keep moving ahead at a faster and faster pace. Okay, now here's something that changes also. It's like human institutions, they change obviously more slowly. So this number 2 story about the guy. So did you ever think about what this guy is doing? The scam? Yeah, he's ripping it off. He's taking money donated by Christians to fund a luxurious lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a little different than that too. Which Christians is he bilking? Well, he's bilking the ones that gave over $30 million for Bibles in China. Now, this is something that may be a newsflash for a lot of people. You can legally buy a Bible in Chinese language in China. They have them for sale. They've had them for sale for years. Somebody might say, well, but it's not the right kind of translation. Okay, maybe you could argue that the translation could be better, or maybe he wanted it mostly to go to Christian literature that he could give away for free. At least that's what the donors were told. But as far as, well, we need Bibles for China. Well, maybe once upon a time you did, by sneaking Bibles. There was a famously back in the I'll say the 70s, but it might have even been the 60s, was a guy that I don't remember what his real name was, but they called him Brother Andrew, and he would smuggle Bibles into Eastern Europe. Okay, behind what we used to call, remember what we used to call it, the Iron Curtain?
Yeah.
Okay, well, and of course he would have been arrested if they had found in the floorboards of his car all these Bibles in these different languages intended for Eastern European Christians. But it's in China. I mean, for goodness sake, I think that's what he's trying to evoke with this. We need to get Bibles into the hands of Chinese Christians.
It's still a legitimate thing, though, because the CCP, the Communist Party in there, they are the ones that are in charge of the official church.
Right.
And they have an official Bible. And
Sure.
they mess with it the same way Jehovah's Witnesses mess with it. They just change things because they don't like what it says. So, I mean,
Well,
there's
they're not
it's
alone. I mean, some people think that the King James translators translated some things in order to make the British monarchy happier than they would have been otherwise, than His Royal Majesty would have been otherwise, right?
Right.
So
so
you're not the first, in other words.
So the thing is we ran out of time to talk about all the stories because of nuclear fusion.
Nuclear fusion's cool.
Yeah, it is. It's cool. So what's cool?
And Jesus statue came back. So nothing to see here, folks.
Yeah.
No, actually, now there is something to see here.
Yeah, there is something to see. Yeah, the only thing that, like, in just a few minutes is is it really blasphemy? I mean, we got to say something. We got to say something about the funky thing app.
Right.
Text with Jesus, the authentic personality of whatever that means.
Whatever that means. That means nothing. And anybody with any intelligence will be able to see that this is, well, it's not exactly a joke, but it's just ridiculous. I guess that's the way to look at it, because sometimes this is showing how long this expression goes back. But I remember when I was in my seminary days, and the professors would talk about, how you can, what they want to say, a wax nose, like a nose, Jesus. Because in theater one time, you want somebody with a big hooked nose. Well, you make it out of wax, and that becomes a prosthetic. We'd call them prosthetics now. But, the idea is that you can shape this wax prosthetic to be any shape you want. And that the seminary profs were warning us that that's what people do to Jesus too. They just shape the Jesus for whatever is the current spirit of the age.
Yeah.
So, and that's what they're doing.
Now it's going to be AI Jesus. So now it's going to be WWAIJD.
But I'm sure that they trained the AI, not it. They trained it so that it will be from a particular viewpoint, and therefore, it really reflects the people who made it, not the AI.
Oh yeah,
not even the Bible.
They've already tipped their hand on that. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Okay, so what are we going to do on the other side of the break?
Well, I thought we'd talk about the gospel lesson. There's an incident that occurs in Matthew's gospel where, well, as soon as I say something about it, people will know about the time Jesus walks on the water and comes out to the disciples who are kind of in distress. They are in distress, and they're not like settled down when they see somebody walking on the water toward them. They kind of freak out. But we're going to talk about that because that comes up in our gospel lesson this coming Sunday. And I had a couple thoughts about it, and I think I'd just like to share them. Okay, so stick with us and we'll be back with Jesus walking on the water. Yeah. We get back in just a few moments, so stick with us.